Hi, my name's Tracey Sims and I'm an artist from Australia and a designer for Zundt Design of Switzerland. Today I'd like to share with you some beautiful embroideries that Urban has created and show you how you can enhance these embroideries with paint. The first thing, I have stitched out one of the beautiful rose designs here from our new collection, Roses and Lace, which I have used to create an embroidered jacket. So as you can see, it's a stunning embroidery already, but we can enhance it with paint. I use different types of brushes. I generally use an angle brush. Now this is a Taklon, which is very soft, and this is a synthetic acrylic, which has a little bit more stiffness and density to it. When I'm painting over embroidery, I tend to use a more stiff type of brush. I use artist paint rather than fabric paint because of the pigment quality, and I like to add a couple of drops of textile medium to the artist paint if it is something that will be washed a lot. So I'm just going to add a drop of textile medium into each of my colours. Here I have Ultra Blue Deep, Payne's Grey and Titanium White. So I'll just pop a drop into each of these colours. Also, I have a product on my palette here called Retarder Medium, and what that does is slow the drying time of the paint down and allows you to blend it a little bit and get some smoothness to the overall effect. So with our rose here, you can see we've got beautiful light, mid-value and dark shading. When I paint, I use probably 10 layers to get the beautiful transition between light and dark. With embroidery, that's not possible. So what I'm going to do is create that effect with paint. So I'm just mixing my textile medium into my colours, and I'm going to create colours very similar to those that are used in our embroidery here. I'll take some titanium white, a little ultramarine, and a little Payne's Grey, and mix that together. And you can see already we're getting colours very similar to those used in the embroidery. I also want to create a highlight colour, so I will add quite a bit more of the titanium white. So what I'm doing is recreating the values that we've used in thread. A value is simply a tone that can be light, medium or dark. So for our darkest value, I'm going to use the Payne's Grey with the Ultra Blue. Paper towel is your best friend when you're painting. So with acrylic paint, I always dampen my brush before I start with a little bit of water. And what that does is help preserve your brush. Acrylic paint dries very quickly, so we don't want the paint to dry on the brush, we want it to stay moist. So I dampen the brush and take the excess off on the paper towel. Now I'm coming into my retarder medium, and I'm going to load the brush in retarder medium so that it soaks it up, and then again take the excess off. Now I have an angle brush for a reason. What I want to do here is dip the pointy end of the brush into the paint, and I am going to blend back and forward until I have a transition on the brush that goes from almost no paint through to the most amount of paint. And what I'm going to do with that is paint over the darkest areas. And I'm using that pointy part of the brush right up against that lighter colour there. So you can see already how that has pushed that back in a little bit. If you get too much medium and paint on the brush, you can pinch out and wipe back in. And note that I'm following the growth direction of these petals and pulling colour out. And what that does is gives you more dimension, more depth into the base of the flower. Now I'm going to pick up a little bit more of the ultra blue now and again blend it through. So this colour's not quite as dark, and I'm going to work from that colour up through the next shade. And see how that gives a beautiful soft transition from light right through. I'm going to also put a little bit more shading in here. So all I'm doing is actually enhancing what is already there. You can see now how that petal is very three-dimensional. It has a lot more tonal value contrast. And what that means is there's a greater difference between the lightest and the darkest areas, and it transitions through gently. So we can also enhance highlights. And that's something that I have done on the small rose from our jacket collection. And you can see on the buds here that the colour of the bud is the same as the colour of the calyx. So what I'm going to do is, with a smaller brush, I'm going to put some highlights on the bud. So I'm going to go into my lightest colour, again blend it through on the palette, and now I'm going to put a highlight onto the bud, and you can see now how that gives a lighter tip. I've used rayon thread. This is Robertson Anton rayon thread, and I find rayon thread allows the paint to be drawn into the fibres of the thread, so that you've got the paint becomes part of the thread. It's almost like dyeing the thread. You can also add extra highlights onto leaves. And here we've got these lovely leaves, but I'm going to add a little extra highlight just in where each segment is touching the vein, and you can see how that's given a third dimension to those leaves. Always work with the growth direction. So you can add as much or as little highlight or depth to your embroideries as you like. When I painted this one on my jacket, I did this process on every petal. So where the dark is, I enhanced the dark. Where the light is, I've enhanced the light. And it gives a whole new dimension to your embroideries. I hope you've enjoyed this and have fun playing with paint.